Hello and welcome to the Cinebums Horror Month.
Ooh.
Woo! Yeah, I was about to, exclaim like more like I'm a girl in a bar, but yeah, no, really, it's oh!
Ah!
Exactly. Yeah, you should be. This month is about fear and anxiety and paranoia. Thinking that something gruesome could happen to you at any turn, or like a brutal jump scare.
Yeah, there's something behind you while you're listening to this,
Yeah.
You keep, as you're listening, you keep turning around, looking behind your shoulder, but there's still nothing there. That's the feeling we want to give off.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was personally this week, I've been open recently about my personal paranoia with, like, say, the movie like Halloween and stuff like that. I could get a little bit more into that, but for instance, John sent me a clip over the weekend. You sent me a clip about it was like the Halloween, I think, the first Danny McBride, David Gordon Green trailer or teaser it was,
Hmm.
where it's like a long shot of Michael Myers. Like he appears on a kid, like just stands over a kid, and then we follow him into a house where like you see murder victims, and it's this kind of cool long take where he walks through a house and stuff, and it's like he's back, and they replaced the music of John Carpenter's theme with the original Bulls, the Bulls starting lineup theme, which I think most people know what that is.
Hmm.
It's kind of similar to the Halloween score, except it's more upbeat and it's like, gets you jacked up. And funny as that is, I actually like rewatched The Last Dance
Nice.
um like a week or so ago. So like that was, the Bulls stuff was like, I had Bulls, like a festive Bulls mentality going, and then you sent me that and I was like, oh, that's cool, they put it with the Bulls theme, that's like perfect. um
Coincidence.
yeah, but as I was watching that, I was kind of, what was funny is I was like still like, wow, I'm terrified of, like, this is so scary still, like, even though the Bulls theme is, and like, to like going back along with like, you know paranoia and all that stuff, like I will never personally get over how scary Michael Myers is, even though the Bulls like starting lineup theme is being played over. I was still watching, and like his breathing, like I kept having to like check myself. I was like, "Ooh, this is like terrifying." And like I don't even think that movie is that good, but it's still like Michael Myers will always, scare the child that is, my childhood self.
Yeah, that's your trauma. Do you remember
Yeah.
the Jamie Lee Curtis and her like press tour
Yeah,
for
yeah, it's about
trauma?
trauma. Yeah, it's about trauma. Yeah, no, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll look out the when October comes around for me, I'll look out my like window, like into the yard, and it'll be like, that shot in the original Halloween where Jamie Lee Curtis looks out of the yard, and by the clotheslines Michael Myers is just standing there. That,
Yeah.
like, I have those like takes a lot, like, um during October. So yay, I love October. It's just so fun.
Yeah, your window behind you reminded me that I have something like that too. Like at our back door, we have a window, and when it's dark outside, and I like let the dog out and I shut the door again, and then I just see this dark window with like the blinds there. I always am just expecting someone to just pop
Right.
out
Yeah,
right there. So I always
exactly.
close the curtains like immediately. It just freaks me
Yeah,
out to
yeah.
have that
See, we're
open.
on real fear. Real
Yeah,
fear is what we're talking. Yeah.
yeah.
Um Currently I'm actually like, I am living alone for the first time in my life, and I live in a John knows, but I live in a back house, like kind of
Outhouse.
a like an outhouse. It's just a bathroom. It's perfect for podcasting. But it's basically behind a pool and a very nice yard, like with like the perfect like barbecuing boogie nights type yard. It's really cool, but at night it is very dark and very empty. And it's just like I have this giant window back here to just overlook it. And I'm sure during my when I start watching more horror movies as this month goes on, I'm gonna have a lot of actual fear and have to
Yes.
hide out back here and gonna be like struggling to go to bed, because that still happens to me at my in my adult life.
Yeah, I mean that just like the way you describe that, picturing it at night, like that's
Right.
definitely plenty of scenes in horror movies too. Like nighttime at the pool, it's empty.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also I have like a kind of picturesque shot of the actual house like across from me, and it's almost way too perfect for like a horror movie, like like a Scream movie or something like
Yeah,
that, where you
yeah.
would see like they'd be looking over to see like is the killer around there. It's almost like way too perfect of a house to shoot a horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. One of my good friends out here used to live in Estes Park, which is up by the national park. It's a pretty small town, small like mountain touristy town, and he lived in an A-frame, and it was like off the main drag of the town, and he had like neighbors, but they were all like kind of far away. And I don't know how he did that. Like he lived there for 3 4 years maybe. Even like when I would like stay overnight there, I was like freaked out the whole time, just like in the middle of like the woods, basically in the mountains.
Right,
And
right.
when it's dark, you just can't see like anything out there. You could like the sky is pretty bright because there's not a lot of
Uh-huh.
like light pollution, but there's just like you can't see anything really. It's really
Right.
spooky. Yeah.
So like what is an A-frame exactly? It's like
So it's like those houses that are like they're like this, and it's just like one level here where they have like there's like a bedroom,
yeah.
kitchen, bathroom, and like living room, and then there's like a loft up top. But it's
Right. And
all
so he
like
lived in
the whole roof is just like this, like down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like very simple,
Yeah. Really, really
right.
simple. Really,
Optimizes space well sort of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Really cool for the mountains. So like there's a ton of
Right,
cool
right.
like A-frames
Right.
and yeah. So it's like a cool place to live and like visit, but man, I don't think I could do that just at night. I would be because he had
Yeah,
like
just
big glass doors, out to his deck. Yeah. Who knows
so
what's looking in at you?
isolated and weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to live amongst people in a way
Yeah.
too busy area that stresses me out usually, so I at least don't fear murderers and stuff like that.
Yeah. There'll at least be someone to hear you scream if someone's murdering you.
People know I died. At
Yeah.
least can get on the case quickly.
Yeah, your body won't decay too much. Well, yeah,
Uh,
I am excited for October because
right,
yeah,
right.
I don't know. The past few years I've been getting more and more into just Halloween in general because it's a great holiday that you're not required to, go and visit family or have family visit you for. So there's no
Yeah, exactly.
obligations.
Right.
It's all fun. And then yeah, you have a good excuse to watch a lot of spooky movies. So
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone loves Halloween. Adults especially.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's not like Christmas where there's like all the magic goes for everything, obviously.
Oh
But
yeah.
like
Life in general. Yeah.
right, but Christmas, like I think all like really drops for you, but like there's really an adult, I think, perspective to where everyone stays like very into October. Um, for some reason, I like partly just because of movies, and people love dressing up. People love the
Yeah.
party scene. And like, I don't know, it's just kind of a cool theme that people get to add to life for like a month that, like, I don't know, is like pretty universally everyone's like into, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like being in school again and there's like a theme day or something like that's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So the next item on the agenda would be previewing our October plan for the Cinebums this month. For those who listen to us regularly, know that my brother Jake has been doing his own episodes for us every now and then to switch it up from these to I don't even know what to call us, but
Bums. Yeah.
bums. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and like Jake is very, very passionate about horror films, and so he's gonna be doing a few things this month. But like obviously week one, which is right now, is going to be horror comedies, which John and I will be discussing later. Week two, Jake and his roommate Brendan are going to do top 5 horror hidden gems. Now, I have seen both of these guys' horror movie collections. It is astounding. It is like Gabe from The Office times 50. you enter their apartment and you see Brendan's horror collection, and you're immediately like, what the fuck? Like right off the bat. So I would tune into that episode for sure.
Excited for that.
If they are narrowing it down for 5 to 5, I want to know what those are, because these guys are very, very into horror. Week 3 is back to these guys. Unfortunately for you guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, but Jake will be there. And what we are going to be talking about Korean horror movies, which I am the first to say I am not an expert about. In fact, I have not seen one film we will be talking about, but I will have by that week. And I do know Korean horror is like a staple, huge, genre among cinephiles. So I'm excited to just like learn about that and like dive into that genre for sure. And John, do you have the movies by chance we're gonna be talking about on our phone? I know one is Train to Busan.
Yeah, Train to Busan is one. The only one of the 3 I've seen, that was pretty big when it came out.
Yeah, that's a huge movie.
States, yeah. The other 2 are The Wailing.
The Wailing.
And the third one is A Tale of Two Sisters.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Now I'm at least aware of The Wailing. I've like heard about it, but A Tale of Two Sisters I have not. So yeah, I'm excited to see those 2 because yeah, I feel like this is like Jake's wheelhouse of like so he can get good recs. So I feel like if he's recommending these, then they're gonna be good. So I trust him.
All right, and so week 4 is Jake and this dude named Cole Bradley, who I have never met before in my life, but he is infamous for having a Letterboxd that will not let up. I do follow him on Letterboxd. I've followed this guy on Letterboxd for years. Never met him in my life. But he's like one of those, I don't know if you know this, John, but there are famous letterboxers out there, who are, they're nobodies, these guys, but they're like these people, but they're known for like having so many movies watched, so many lists, so many reviews that are written, they're written like, Pynchon novels. They just go on, and you can't even follow them. They're so complex, these reviews, that sort of thing. But like, yeah, he's one of those guys. So he is a huge guest to watch out for. because like John and I, he has absolutely no life, and he sits around and watches movies for days. And the actually the theme of the episode is going to be 31 Days of Halloween, aka highlighting all the movies we watched through October. Will release on the 31st. I know Jake has been doing this for years, where he watches 31 horror movies, so a horror movie a day. I have never officially done this. I believe I've like tried and like, at least I
Same.
know I've watched a lot of horror movies, that's for sure. I've never done the horror movie a day and like been able to report on every day I watched this horror movie. So they're basically I'd like to think they are paying tribute to the original movie bender that John and I have put our stamp on,
Yes.
and they are doing it full on 31 days of horror. So that is a huge episode, and I believe that is a great one to end the month on. So definitely tune in for that. Yeah. So as y'all can see, we have horror month figured out this year in 2022. And yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, how did we get this Letterboxd guy? Is this
Well,
does
he's like a
Jake know him?
friend of Jake. He's like a
Oh, okay.
student. Yeah, he's not like
The way you talked about it, I thought he was like this influencer on Letterboxd that
well,
we
no,
just reached
in a
out.
way he is. In a way he is, I think. In a way I think he is like
But Jake knows
um
him outside
yeah,
of
Jake knows him.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Well, actually, who knows? He maybe even met him through the Letterboxd. I don't know. But I do remember back in the
Cool.
day when I was like, sometimes watching 2 to 3 movies a day, living that type of life. It would be like guys like this and others on Letterboxd who would have such a following, and they would watch so many movies, like have like 4,000 to 5,000 logged. I would be like, God, I gotta get on that level, even though it was like impossible, like to get on that level because they're so ahead and they're still watching that many every day.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, that'll be quite the listen then.
Well, before we get into the movies of the day, I want to talk about The Office really quick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you were expecting that.
I missed the note before the show that we were talking about The Office. I got to be ready now. Oh.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like sorry to bring something up so out of your wheelhouse real quick. But yeah, like I need to talk about this here because I think like the last couple episodes I forgot to mention it. I'm not talking about I'm not gonna be talking about like the Halloween episode or anything like that. So this is non-horror themed, so excuse me, everybody. But I have been rewatching Office season 2 recently. I think like it was like over a year ago I was like mentioning that I was rewatching like just the show in general.
Yeah.
And what was funny is like I started like late season 2. So it was like maybe an episode or two before the infamous casino night episode that I started. And I believe that is a like a point in the show that hooks everyone usually, including rewatchers of The Office. Like if I start around casino night and I watch Jim tell Pam that he's in love with her, watch her reject him, and then watch the season end, I usually am hooked and I have to watch season 3 practically in a sitting, and then by that time I have to watch season 4, and then I'm in it, so I just watch like season 5 and just finish it right there. It's a very dangerous dangerous point like that, like in the show that I can pick out and be like, wow, like what show hooks me like as much as this, like as much as Casino Night in the Office. I can't really pick a lot of series that can hook me like as much as Casino Night in the Office to just like blast off into
Keep
it, you
going.
know?
Yeah.
Maybe like Breaking Bad episode 1. Anyways, like after that binge, you know, I definitely, we talked and like I had a lot of very I don't know, just very personal things to discuss about how I relate to the show now, and how I see, you know, how like how much the Michael Scott character now weighs more on me now that I'm more an adult and I see how tragic of a character he is.
Yeah.
How much more I relate to everyone's lives in the office and everything like that. You know, yada yada yada. But one thing I didn't do was I didn't rewatch like the beginning of season 2 and the middle of season 2. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that today because I think I missed a very key part of the show. You know, like I missed a lot of like, because I've been rewatching it with producer Jake, in fact, and I'm like rewatching it. I'm like, holy shit! Like every episode here is like a classic. Like this is this episode, you know, and I am just like always very just amazed at how well formed the show is already in season 2 and how much it knows what it is already, how on point the humor is already, like in its like, you know, in its second season already. It's like really astounding.
And the first season was only like 5 or 6 episodes too.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
you
like
know,
their first full season.
Right, it's their first full season. They already just know what they're doing. Everyone knows their role so much. It's just insane, and it just lays the groundwork for them to really set off going forward. But you know, we're like talking about how Michael Scott is such a tragic character. Like season 2, he is especially tragic. There is not a lot of like moments where he is humanized or where he's like where the cast has that, you know, rapport where they know how to make fun of him, where they find that like lovable side to him. Season 2 is like pure awkwardness. So I'm like watching it and I'm like, holy shit, man, this guy like is so depressing, like holy shit. And I want to point to specifically the episode I specifically wanted to talk about that I wanted to bring up on one of our last episodes, like that I probably should have brought up because we had less to talk about on those episodes, like maybe Once Upon a Time in America. But the Office Olympics episode where the A story is Michael buys a condo. The B story is Office Olympics. I just wanted to talk about that because this is an episode where the A story of Michael buying a condo, I did not really get it in high school when I was really into The Office. I did, because you don't understand like the adult side of mortgages and like that episode was probably written in like, you know, pre-08 maybe. So like, I don't know, maybe the time period has a little bit to do with that. But like, I just did not understand the fucked up nature of like why that episode is so fucked up for Michael. That's the main
really
thing
depressing.
I want to bring up. Yes, it is.
Yeah. It's those moments. I feel like it's been a while since I've gone down like an Office sort of like consistently watching The Office. It's been like the longest I've taken a gap of it in years, I think. But every time
you're trying to improve yourself, you're trying to better yourself.
Yeah, I just want to give a little bit more cushion before I dive back
Right.
in.
Yeah, I have to do that with shows myself.
Yeah, but as I've watched it as an adult, and by that I mean I probably watched a bunch of episodes at some point last year, and I remember like thinking, I feel like I'm an adult now because I'm actually starting to relate to Michael Scott more,
Right,
and I like
exactly.
feel like
Yeah.
I would also make some of the mistakes that Michael Scott makes too as an
Mm-hmm.
adult,
Mm-hmm.
like not understanding the mortgage situation and just
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so sad because he's like 45 when he's like 45 and he has just decided to buy property now. And like he's overlooking just these very sad looking condos that could be in any suburban area. Um, and he's like, someday I'll be raising my kids here, and he ends up like looking at the wrong one. Like he's not even, oh,
Oh wait,
actually, it's this one. Yeah.
that's yeah.
And then like
uh,
he's like inside and Dwight's like measuring the square footage
yep.
and Dwight's like, this is smaller than your last place. And he's like, well, Dwight, I'm owning now, so it's a step up actually, and
Yeah.
like and I now like relate to that. I understand, like it is that myth that we all fall under, just that American idea of owning a home, that it is like, that it's the American dream and whatnot. But
Yeah.
it's really like, I don't know, in a lot of cases, home owning is like the American, like, I don't know, not the American dream. It's like kind of like a scam, like a lot of other things, like where yeah, a lot of dreams go to die, and like where
Hmm.
like there's a Chris Rock bid where in Tambourine where he's like, if you have a bad mortgage, like there is nothing worse than a bad mortgage, and it's like, and I was like, huh, I didn't know that. I've never had a mortgage, that sort of thing. And then like in the episode, like Steve Carell's wife is reading off the guidelines to the mortgage, and the rate and whatnot, and Dwight's like, ooh, you're gonna be paying this off in your mid 70s. And it's just like, oh my god, it's just
Yeah.
like the worst deal he's getting. But it like it's and then he's like having all sorts of like, he's just so torn about it, and like the money situation is obviously terrible, and we all know, Office fans know that Michael Scott has money trouble the entire rest of the show. Like it's
Yeah.
so sad. Like he's in
Yeah.
incredible debt and all this stuff, and he's
Declares
clearly yeah,
bankruptcy.
he declares bankruptcy, and he's clearly like a slave to this condo for the rest of the show. Like when like there's all these moments where Kevin is going like, Michael, you might lose your condo, like because of him making certain choices, and like when he thinks he has a job at corporate but really doesn't, he's like, Kevin's like, Michael, you should never sell your condo just out of off of a hunch and stuff like that. And like when Jan goes back to like, she ends up like, we find out that she's really gone off the deep end, that she's like lost her job at corporate, and
Yeah.
he's like, she's like, what are we gonna do now? And he's like, well, you could move in with me. I could probably get out of my selling my condo. Might get a lot of flack on my eBay page, but
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot
yeah,
about
and
that
it's
line.
just so awful. And like he's trying to get out of like buying this condo in the Office Olympics episode, and Steve Carell's wife is like, you will lose like $8 or $9 grand or whatever if you back out now, because apparently he put on a deposit, to have the dibs, or I don't know what the adult word is, but basically he has dibs on buying the condo.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's basically forced into doing it because of that. It sucks. And then he like asks Dwight to move in with him and pay him rent to help him out financially and stuff. And yeah, it sucks, man.
Yeah.
But the episode ends in a very great way for me, is where I also didn't understand this at the end. I like the full, I guess, every like layer of the humor of this final shot, where they're doing the closing ceremonies of the Office Olympics, and they give like Michael his like yogurt
lid.
His yogurt metal tinfoil lid, and they sing the national anthem. They play the national anthem, and Michael stands like with his medal, and he's like kind of crying during it, and it's like kind of very bittersweet, because they give Michael a very much needed, win after just getting fucked on his condo pretty much. And Jim and he asked Jim, he's like, why is there American flag? He's like, because your condo is in America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
like, it totally makes sense to him somehow. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's just like, I don't know, just something I want to touch on that is like I don't know, something that I took away that I now think is like very not only brilliant, but very relatable to being a regular adult, which we unfortunately are now, and so
Yeah. You the older you get, the more you realize how similar you are to Michael Scott.
Right. Yeah. Like he has lines where like he's like, "Ha, I'm a screenwriter," and I feel like that's just like me, like everywhere, everywhere I am. There's also like real quick before we get into our movies of the day, close out this little Office thread. I like the episode where they have a business meeting with Tim Meadows at a Chili's. I also just found like, I don't know, I just see like more hidden meaning and more like reality in all this than I used to. Just like how the business meeting ends up building towards like these three people drinking together, and Michael eventually like opening up and being like, I've born and raised in Scranton, never lived anywhere else, and I don't plan on it, and like him kind of using that like chip on his shoulder of like having lived in Scranton all his days, and like for the meeting to close the deal. And he kind of says, the problem with these big chains is that they cut us off, and then they raise the prices, and he kind of like slips that in there. And you kind of see the way he's like, I don't know, it's a very I don't know, like everyman way of doing business that I feel like is just done. You like that, something like that happens probably at a Chili's like every night in the USA, like where someone's like having a business meeting just like that.
Yeah, that's a very like I don't know, one of those moments where you see Michael Scott as like doing something well that everyone expects him to not do well at, and then he ends up becoming more of like towards the end he seems more like a normal person because he's
like the arc of it is really
surprised
like
everyone.
Good, because he seems like he's goofing the whole meeting, but in the end he's showing like, oh my, oh, this is his like sales strategy, and like and in the end he like really reveals a big part of himself, and he uses that to make the sale. I just think it's really brilliant, and he just he really seems like a real guy in that moment, and
Exactly.
so does
Yeah.
Tim Meadows. And I think it's just, yeah, it's just really well done, from people who are really not like like really not those types of people, like people who are like, like improvisers and sketch comedy people,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. To round that out too, just how he talks about money too, and like Scott Stotts when he's like, I thought I would have a lot more money by then.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
yeah,
I ended
yeah.
up having less money
Right.
than I did in my 30s or whatever. Yeah.
Right, right. I thought I'd be a millionaire by my 40s, but I ended up having less money
That's
than in
when
my
I,
30s. Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe by the time maybe in my 50s or whatever he
Yeah.
says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe my 50s, we'll see. Yeah, it's all like about like, I don't know, like never letting go of like dreams, and you really see that in everyday people. And um like there's also an episode in season 2 where, the classic Michael goes to New York and he walks around before the business meeting, eats a New York slice at Sabaro and stuff like that. And he's walking around, he's talking about like, um maybe I'll move to New York one day. It's always been a dream of mine living in Manhattan. And it's just like, we all know like he's not going to do it. Like he just bought a condo like 3 episodes ago, like
Yeah.
and yeah, and just stuff like that. And there's a great moment between like Jim and Michael, like on the booze cruise, where like, Jim says like, I never I used to have a big thing for Pam and like whatnot. And then Michael says, never ever give up, which is like a great like thing coming from the guy. Like at the time, he in the framing of the episode, he's like Rob Riggle tied him to the boat, like
Yeah.
because he was being obnoxious on the cruise. And, coming from a guy where the whole season he's just such a loser and such a sad character. It's just like that you finally see some humanity in him of like,
Yeah.
never ever give up. And he's like saying it to, we all know like the arc of like Jim and Michael and how sweet it is. So that moment is like really nice to see in on the booze cruise as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Just sprinkle in those little moments of humanity from Michael Scott. Yeah. That's why
Yeah.
he makes that show. He's yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm always up for office talk.
Yeah.
Should we
Yeah. I
get to
hope
our movies now?
yeah. I hope I brought it. It's hard for me to talk about The Office and Michael Scott without getting a little choked up.
Oh yeah.
Um, but all right. So, all right, our films of the day. I don't know. Should we like reveal them all at once, or should we like go one by one?
Let's go
We're
one
gonna
by
put in the
one.
up. Yeah, whatever. It's gonna be in the
You'll read it.
description anyways.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah,
read
they'll
it
read it
before.
first. Okay. All right. So our first film is Robert Zemeckis' Death Becomes Her, which I believe maybe a year ago or like the year before we both saw this for the first time and talked about it around October possibly.
Yeah. We might have
Yeah.
done it for our Halloween bender last year,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
And I do recall discovering this film and being like, wow, what a gem. Um, and so I was like definitely very happy to rewatch this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was more than fine with throwing this on again because it's great. Like this movie really nails it on all levels.
It's really like wacky and goofy, and especially for Goldie Hawn does a lot of comedies, I guess, but like Meryl Streep and Bruce Willis, it's funny
Yeah.
seeing them as these very, very goofy characters. And the God, what am I trying to say? The just design and like practical effects of everything are
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool in this too. Just,
Mm-hmm.
the shot of, I think it's Goldie Hawn with her stomach just completely
Yeah, yeah,
out.
where they like notice she's like alive again and the camera goes through her and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like in terms of like a horror comedy that is also like playing along like I don't know, conventions of like in society of like a male that preys on like like on youthful qualities in women and like and a society that is obsessed with women staying young and being forced to stay young, especially in like places like Hollywood and show business. I think this movie nails that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like every beat of it, I am like so on board with just the humor and the timing of it. And yeah, and just Robert Zemeckis and his like comedic timing is on like full force here. And it's definitely like, along with a couple other movies here, it's one of those I could just have on a loop. I just like it that much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And I also was just like looking more into it, and apparently it wasn't like well received when it came out, or really well liked, but it's had a sort of a resurgence because I think there was like a drag show, or I don't know if it was a drag show or like Broadway production where where they used like a heavily like gay cast. And I think that sort of helped bring it back up, was that there was like a huge LGBTQ population that really loved this movie and like
Right,
story, and sort of
right,
revived it.
right.
um
A sensitive community that is feeling I guess
yeah,
an oppressed community that
yeah,
saw something in this.
it's like this
Yeah,
hyper feminine these hyper feminine characters. And yeah, so I didn't know much about this at all until maybe a couple years ago, and now I feel like I've heard about it so much from people,
right.
that it's really like having a resurgence now.
And might I
Yeah.
say, one of my favorite Bruce Willis roles by far. I think he is so funny in this at every turn.
Mhm.
Just playing the guy who's like, "Baby, I will never leave you," to immediately marrying Meryl Streep and
Yeah.
just being obsessed with sex and then paying for it by being like the kind of guy in the monkey in the middle, if you will, of this like curse that ends up happening
Yeah.
and has to deal with it and be like, we gotta paint your eyebrows. They don't look natural or whatever. It's great. And I love his like monologue at the end where he's like, I don't want to stay here forever. What if like I'll stay young, but what if everyone else will get old? What if I get hurt? What if all this stuff? And it's just like, I don't know. I love how he's very vulnerable and very I don't know, just like goofy and willing to look like a fool in this.
Yeah.
And you can't say that about many Bruce Willis roles. That's kind of him going
Yeah.
against type, where he's usually a very like like super repressed like man, especially like later in his career.
Yeah. And this
So
is like
yeah,
the height of he was like a big action star at this point in
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah,
This isn't too
90
long
90s
after.
Bruce Willis is huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, this is definitely a huge left turn. But yeah, I like how he's sort of being fought over by these women, and he's kind of, yeah, just like a goofy, weird, vulnerable guy. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with they are into him for selfish reasons of wanting to always look
Right.
young. And so I like how
Right.
it ties. I also really love how you know this endless competition between them turns into this like friendship, because they realize they have
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
the same fears and the same desires. And
Right.
yeah, and then so it's, yeah, great ending to it too. And
Oh yeah, the ending is great.
yeah,
I think before we wrap this movie too, I think like we should also touch on just the genre we're covering.
Yeah.
Like the horror comedy genre, I don't know, as a whole. Like I love it, and I also I prefer it maybe as well.
Hmm.
And I think you could also make the argument that movies that aren't necessarily horror comedies are like also comedies. You know, like you could say some of the Friday the 13th movies are comedies. I remember watching the first like Nightmare on Elm Street. I sure laughed a lot
Oh yeah,
watching that.
that is a
Yeah,
really wacky one. Yeah.
right. Like that is a very funny movie. The Shining at times is a funny movie. The Scream movies are funny.
Yeah.
So I think like this is like if you want to get like that into it, like I think you could almost say that a lot of horror movies are comedies, and that I don't know, the genre in itself is like, to me at times at its best when it's playing along the lines of like humor with the
Yeah.
absurd things that are going on. Death Becomes Her, for instance, does that very well, with specifically, like you said, the effects and the violence elements. And we will see that going forward with the rest of the films we are talking about today, like especially like some of the later ones. So that I
Yeah.
don't know, that's just touching on the horror comedy genre.
Yeah. I think a lot of horror just allows a lot of creativity, and you can make room for the absurd a little bit more because
Right.
there's just so many different facets of like the horror genre that you can
Right.
go.
Yeah.
And you can just do a lot with it. So that's, I feel like there's so many more creative chances taken on like horror movies,
Right.
um
Exactly.
that you don't see in a lot of other genres.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the best part of these movies we're going to talk about.
So I guess wrapping up Death Becomes Her. I don't know if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's really it's Robert Zemeckis, man. Back to the Future,
Yeah.
Castaway, The Walk with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and this is his horror comedy that very much feels like a slapstick from the 30s or 40s, and it's with
Yeah.
Bruce Willis, Meryl Streep, and Goldie Hawn, and it's very progressive still today. So check it out. Stop whatever you're doing now.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, it really is a like a classic slapstick comedy,
it is, yeah,
but
that's
with
what
a
I
lot
first
of
thought when
cool
I
horror and
yeah
just horror elements in it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, to touch on 90s films real quick here in general, because I this year, like, I want to be the guy who's like exploring pre 60s films. I want to like say I've seen a lot of the things in the 70s and whatnot, but I just can't help revisiting the 90s. And it is just such a great decade of movies. And it is because it is like a time where it's like one of the last like times. I mean, the 2000s it still was that time, but like the 90s was a time where they will still like make like creative movies that were like very much also like taking from the old days, you know, and
Yeah.
but like really like going all out with them, you know. And I can't help but I endlessly find that from movies in the 90s. I'm like, I just like I'll watch it, I'm just like, it's just insane that this got made, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, the 90s I feel like was definitely one of the last that sounds too pessimistic, but yeah, a time period before we hit a lot of just over the top commercialism that we kind of see now that's like dominating
Right.
movie theaters, but there's still a lot of I think there's a lot more niche
Yeah, there's a lot of like good
outlets.
stuff being made to these days. I just feel like the 90s in comparison is like, oh my God, they were almost like oversaturated with people trying to make like interesting stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was an amazing time. And the point being too, like everyone wanted to watch them too. Like everyone wanted to watch them.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that's Death Becomes Her. All right, so next would be Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, yes.
If you notice, I like the way that one girl and it says Shaun.
His girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend?
Well, I think his girlfriend kind of says it, but there's that one woman who he sees like on the street at one point, and she ends up being like working with like the government and the army that comes to take out all the zombies at the end of the film all of a sudden, and she sees him at the end and she's like, sure. It's great. Yeah, I just love the way she's like leaning into the shore.
Yes. Well, yeah, Shaun of the Dead, the horror comedy from Edgar Wright, zombie movie. We have as you will see, we are talking about a lot of dead tonight, and the undead,
right,
which is also just zombie-ish movies are always, there's always good crossover with horror because but Shaun of the Dead definitely been a favorite for many years now, since seeing it as a kid. Right, pretty much. This came out at a good time in our lives where we're like getting older to like want to watch stuff like this more, like more raunchier comedies,
right, more interesting, like playing like for movie nerds, playing along genre so much, and like for people who have seen a lot of movies, I feel that's what in Edgar Wright was making movies for, like I think people are a little more divisive these days about Edgar Wright, because they are not into maybe his last couple films as much, but this is the movie that like made Edgar Wright, and it like and justifiably so. Because like it is, I was watching this movie and I was like, holy shit, like this is a movie I could literally have on a loop, like just playing in the background of my life. Like I like this movie that much. It just has like we were saying with Death Becomes Her, like it has great timing just overall, and I just love this is the first of two British movies that we're talking about today, British horror comedies. I love the British people have like, I don't know, they got the wit to them, man. They like they just know how to use their wits in film sometimes, better than anyone. And in this movie, they really do it. And I just love the bummy, dead inside, like young people vibes this has at the beginning. And I remember like when I first saw it, it was like I saw like Nick Frost and Simon Pegg like getting up and playing video games and being like, wow, that is exactly what I want to be doing when I'm an adult. And so I grew up and I did just that. And like just the way it's also it's playing, the movie plays so much on people being so dead in their lives that they don't
mundane
notice
and dull.
They don't notice that much about the apocalypse, and that like, I don't know, is like maybe the idea, is there really a difference, and I don't know, I guess like, and the arc of the film that basically gets Shaun to grow up is this zombie apocalypse,
Yeah, it's the thing that gets him out of his comfort zone, like
Mhm.
the easy mundane tasks of his like everyday life, like that he never wants to branch out
Right,
and
right.
grow. Yeah, it's like it's directly said by Peter Serafinowicz, one of the roommates, like that
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
telling him that Nick Frost is bringing him down, and he's just like
Right, right.
allowing him to be that aloof loser,
Right, yeah. Yeah, like he
guy that
has
he is.
lines like we've had some good times. You remember that night we played video games and got drunk? Oh yeah, that was
Oh
5 years ago.
yeah, 5 years ago, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I just
So
like
other people see
um
potential in Shaun too. Like even
right,
his
right, right.
girlfriend who's breaking up with him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She's very like constructive, I think, with her
Right. And even she has
criticism.
those like two friends
Yeah,
that like they're like I don't like them, they're always around, like I like relate to being like I don't know, just feeling like everyone around you, the group you're with, you're like, "Oh, like these are the people, like these are my
yeah.
friends, like god damn it. They're all like, like and just feeling stuck and like them
This is
being
who I'm
like,
doing my podcast with.
yeah, yeah. I thought I'd be doing a podcast with Mark Maron by now,
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is
um,
speaking of like relating to things differently as you get older, like with The Office. Like, yeah, when I
right,
was
right.
younger, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, I just want to lay on the couch, play video games with my
right,
friends and
right,
eat
right.
chips and
And
do all that. And now I'm
yep.
like,
And
oh my
and
God, I'm
and
becoming that
soon
guy.
a year goes by and you realize that was not a good idea at all.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do I stop doing this? And that's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and just like also like when they're they have that great section where they're trying to decide how they will deal with the apocalypse, and they're like there's that grid, like they have the different edits of it, and they're like, pick up mom, kill Philip, sorry Philip, and then like we'll pick them up, and then we'll come here, have a cup of tea, and just
Wait for
wait
it
for
all to
all
blow
this to
over.
blow over. It's like that's like very similar, it's like the pandemic, if you think about it, to COVID.
Yeah.
To the
Yeah.
like maybe the mindset that you would have in your head. You're thinking about like who you would spend your time with, what you would do, like what's the best thing. I love how Nick Frost is like, he's like, they're like, where's safe? Where's familiar? And he's like, where can I smoke? Because
Yeah.
there's like the practical, stupid like things that you need to do in like daily life in the middle of like a world crisis, and then they end up
Yeah.
deciding it's the Winchester.
Yeah. And then again, wait for this all to blow over.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think you mentioned um timing or something about timing with Edgar
Timing,
Wright,
yeah,
and that's
right,
I love the rhythm to his movies. At
yeah,
least
yeah,
these ones with Simon Pegg, and that scene too is one of those where it just goes quickly, runs through like this plan, and they're
uh-huh,
like altering the
yeah,
plan as each time
yeah,
goes on, and it's just a really just a unique way to show exposition, I guess. And
right, it is,
I just feel like, yeah, there's such a great rhythm to these Edgar Wright movies.
yeah,
Just setting the scene really to
right,
John's life,
yeah,
and yeah, this
yeah, I think,
the subtle like hints too, as you go along in the beginning as to like what's happening. People,
yeah, it's like
the
very
background.
self-aware. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very self. You see him on the bus, and he sees just someone drop dead on his way to work, and he's just like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, I also loved how like I forget what song it is, but it's kind of known as like a hype song, and it starts playing in the context of the movie. Like it play like they play this actual song over the edit, and
Hmm.
but then when he's on the bus, they cut to him on the bus, and the song is playing from the bus. And
Yes. Yeah.
so the context is now that song, while you're listening to it on a bus and not in a movie, is very lame And if you're like listening to that song on a bus on your way to work, you just feel dead inside pretty much. Like, yeah, I love that. Yeah, like the edits in Edgar Wright are very revered among like filmmakers and just everyone in general. And like even like I remember I don't know if you ever saw his movie Baby Driver.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Very, I don't really remember it that well. I don't even know if I would, how much I would like it on rewatch. I'm unsure of that, but I do remember the edits of it being, specifically the car chases, just being fantastic. Like, wow, I am on the edge of my seat with the way he's editing these chase scenes together.
Yeah, I like vividly remember seeing that in theaters and loving it. Like I was blown
Right,
away.
like the soundtrack with the editing. It's like,
it was all so
I'm like,
great.
what a time at the what a time at the movies, you know.
And I remember I saw it with my friend, and like we like just talked a little bit at the end. We're like, yeah, I liked it. And then I got in the car and like I was driving home and I was just blasting music and driving down Butterfield Road. And I was after leaving Yorktown, and I was just so like in the zone. Like, hell yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But on rewatch, I'll say this too. I don't know if you've watched it multiple times, but
I haven't.
I watched it again like a year later, and I thought that I didn't realize how much the story really drags on in that. And you kind of start to lose interest. And after seeing it like the first time, I was kind of on a high just from like the driving sequences and
right.
Yeah, again, the rhythm, how like
and maybe the humor too, like everyone's really funny in it. Like there's like Jamie Foxx and you know Kevin Spacey, who I loved at the time, and John Hamm, I believe, also, right? Like just all these actors where you're like, this couldn't have been casted more perfectly, you know?
Yeah. So it's one of those that maybe doesn't hold up as well. It's definitely, I feel like all of Edgar Wright's movies without Simon Pegg kind of don't have as much of that, like, I don't know, charm to it or something, you know. It's missing something that these three specifically that they did together,
right, that they were
especially
a team,
Shaun of the Dead, are amazing.
This is a movie we've never touched on really, which is I don't know, it's interesting. Just, you know, we've been doing a podcast now for a while together, and it's like such an essential movie. I remember when I was I've probably referenced this before, but when I was first really getting into movies in my early 20s, and I was watching Quentin Tarantino's favorite movies video of like the 90s, or like the movies I wish I've made since I became a director. Like it's like a very famous video. And you know, like one of those movies is Bong Joon-ho's The Host. Like Boogie Nights is on there. The Insider by Michael Mann is on there, and Shaun of the Dead is on there. And I remember seeing that video and being like, I gotta see Shaun of the Dead. And it is a really good list. Like all the movies are very respected and very fun. And I mean, you know, like he has The Matrix on there. Like it's a very not pretentious list outside of some of the like Asian films on there. Like Battle Royale is like number 1 on the list. And I'm like, really? Battle Royale, man? Like I watched it. Like I don't like it that much, you know? Like
I feel like that one's kind of hyped up a lot, but
that's like a him taste, I think. But anyways, like, you know, Shaun of the Dead definitely very deserving of that being on Quentin Tarantino's pedestal. And definitely after watching it the other day, I was like, yeah, this is like a movie to rewatch every October.
For sure.
Yeah, plays on the genre of the zombies as about as well as anyone can, I think.
Yeah, glad we got to talk about Shaun of the Dead.
Our next film from 1992, Peter Jackson's Braindead.
Yes.
Infamous director of The Lord of the Rings. I've wanted to see this man's work like pre-Lord of the Rings for some time now, so this was like a good excuse for me to finally do that. Oh, and also, of course, pre-Beatles Get Back. I mean,
Yes, yeah,
he is
yeah.
now infamous for that as well. Arguably better than Lord of the Rings, you could almost
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I'm just starting to explore pre Get Back Peter Jackson now. I don't know if you've heard of like
After I
Lord of the
got through those
Rings.
Hobbit movies, I got to this Return of the King, and I must
Yeah.
say, you could see the potential that he's building towards that Beatles documentary.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he just really the four hobbits really all resembled the Beatles, who he used for his characters in Get Back. So yeah.
I've got a feeling that Peter Jackson's going someplace.
Yeah. Yes, this was a good look back at early Peter Jackson. Because yeah, I didn't know until probably just recently that Peter Jackson started his filmmaking career making these like goofy horror movies
Right.
with all these practical effects and great like character design and everything. And of course, like it does, like we were just joking about, but it totally makes sense how he was so successful with Lord of the Rings and was like actually a um great person for that, because that's what is
Right.
so much better about Lord of the Rings than The Hobbit, which is a longer discussion, is just the look of everything.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And there
is
is
just so
a
great. Yeah,
horror side to those movies.
yeah.
Like there are a lot of very scary scenes in Lord of the Rings.
Yes, yes, definitely, maybe scarier than scenes in
Than this
Braindead.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, oh for sure. Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. And I think there's like parallels, which is interesting that because we're gonna talk about our Sam Raimi movie in a bit.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting that both these guys coming up small time horror directors ended up getting the rights to these giant properties that ended up being
Yeah,
like in everyone's eyes like 2000s like heroes, like
yeah,
some of the biggest movies of the 2000s now are regarded as like everyone will bow down to what these guys did with those films. And they were both just small time horror directors before. So you see like a similar path in their careers, which is cool.
yeah. I didn't put that together. Yeah, that's interesting.
And I'll also say that this movie, Braindead, I watched the Evil Dead 2 first, and Evil Dead. I watched Evil Dead also like a few months ago. I see a little bit of influence possibly on Braindead, for
Yeah,
sure, in the effects and the absurdity, and just like I don't know, the body deformation stuff, and like just the how like these people become possessed and it ends up growing into this really insane of I don't even know what, just like an absurd thing, like something with like a long giraffe neck with like a zombie head
yeah,
on the end and a like just something really horrific, and but is also kind of like very funny, and they like realize it, and they're using the humor in the movie to play along that. I thought this movie did that really well. I thought this movie was, I don't know, more like, I guess more ahead than I expected it to be, I
hmm
was expecting it to be like more, like a little smaller, a little like less self-aware, and maybe not as quick. This movie was like very quick and very subtle in its humor, and I definitely took to it right away.
yeah, yeah. It has that New Zealand humor from other
Right,
things like.
he's not British. He's from New Zealand.
Oh, you were talking about British for this one too. Oh
I,
yeah,
I
yeah,
meant
yeah.
British,
I
like when
see.
it came to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
For
Shaun
some
of the
reason, I
Dead.
was thinking that was another one we were talking about, but yeah,
So
no.
never mind, everybody. Actually, ThanksKilling's a British movie.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, wait, is ThanksKilling? Yeah. But yeah, yeah. It has that New Zealand humor of like the Flight of the Conchords kind of has What We Do in the Shadows too. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
really love. I just feel like there's a certain certain witty charm that is like the general like New Zealand sense of humor, it seems like.
Right.
Yeah, and like the characters, like you said, the weird long neck, like giraffe looking zombie, the rat too, and that
Yeah.
spreads everything. Like it is such a goofy looking little creature. And
The
yeah, and
violence as well, like just how
yeah,
how crazy it gets. Like a guy like comes out of the grave and gets like punted like
yeah,
a bunch of yards and shit like that. Like everyone's like crawling in the house and shit. And
there's so much physical comedy.
yeah, there
uh
is. Yeah, there is.
like the evil demon baby too, just
Yes.
getting like thrown around, and the guy chasing after it and just like rolling down a hill. Like, yeah, it is very yeah, there's just so much like physicality to all the comedy of,
Yeah.
and in a way that it's like very just goofy or like innocent at times too.
Yeah, and it all ends up like building towards where like his mom is very possessed, and he's like, "How dare you talk to me like that, mom?" And he's like, has to like stand up to her, and I don't know, I think he's like had a more overly clingy relationship with his mom up to that point. So yeah, I mean, this was my first time seeing it, so I can't go into it as much as the other films, but I definitely liked it a lot. Took to it right away. Would watch it again in a heartbeat for sure.
Yeah, and I
And
definitely
like,
see the influence from Evil Dead too. Like
yes,
even the
yeah,
protagonist, the guy, he kind of looks like Ash
like
too.
yeah,
And
he's using him as his Ash.
yeah,
Like we're gonna bounce this guy around, pummel him, all
yeah,
that stuff. Yeah,
he's like a somewhat like good looking guy, but he also falls over and rolls, and like he's very
yeah,
clumsy,
gets
and
really bloody, has scars all over him
yeah,
and
and then he's
stuff.
also the
Yeah,
hero too. So
right.
yeah,
Okay, so yeah,
yeah,
that is Braindead by the Get Back filmmaker.
yes.
If you like the Beatles,
Oh, you'll love this.
you'll love Braindead.
This is a sidebar, but have you heard the story about how the Beatles wanted to make a Lord of the Rings movie back in the day?
No, I think maybe like I've
Maybe.
over that maybe like a sidebar thing that came up. Yeah, not
Well, there's like
not a lot.
there's like this story. I mean, you can look up more about it later, but apparently the Beatles were like really serious, like they wanted to make a Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings movie, and then I think they just never ended up getting the rights or something like that. But like they even had it planned out that Paul would be Frodo, Ringo was Sam, George was Gandalf, and John was Gollum, and like they
That's such weird casting.
see, it's like they thought of it because like George is into like the mysticism and religion
Oh,
and stuff like that, and then
yeah.
John is just really weird and has that just kind of
He's like got a
just
hard hunch neck sort of deal, and he's
yeah,
kind
he's
of
just that weird like sense of humor and everything. And then Ringo is just like, I feel like Ringo's a perfect Sam. Just
yeah, that's true.
he'll do it.
Of
He'll
the
just
group, he's definitely the Sam. Yeah,
yeah,
he's putting up with everything. Yeah, Paul's definitely Frodo. So I get. Yeah,
yeah.
actually, not you made it all. You made it. It all makes sense now. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
happy they didn't do that because that sounds like
would
awful
would have been weird.
comparison to what we
Yeah,
got. Yeah, like it would have been such a bad one. I think it's funny that those a lot of people might not like this, but I find it funny that those books like are so like revered. Like even the Beatles were like, we have to make a movie out of these because like
yeah.
I read those books and I'm like, in comparison to what Peter Jackson did, I'm like falling asleep
I could
because
not get through any of them.
I'm
Yeah,
so used to the pacing of the films that the way the books are done in comparison, I just can't. I'm like reading them. I'm like, God, dude, like they're having tea in the movie. Like there's so much more stuff happening than this, you know?
my imagination cannot recreate what this guy who made the Beatles Get Back can in
Yeah,
Lord of
yeah.
the Rings. Yeah. All right. Well,
Okay.
that's end of that sidebar. And yeah.
So that's Brain Dead. The next film on our list, because I looked up like Peter Jackson stuff in the middle of this. All right, the next film. Is it Evil Dead 2? Right?
Evil Dead 2.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Like we're really like feels like we're really moving quickly through this, like because we're almost at the end of it.
Yeah.
But Evil Dead 2. Okay, another movie that I'm also like, wow, we haven't talked about this movie in depth yet, because
Yeah.
this is like another film like people are so religious about the Evil Dead
Yeah.
2. The first Evil Dead I rewatched a few months back because I was trying to rewatch Sam Raimi stuff at the time. I remember we were talking about the Spider-Mans at the time as well. The first Evil Dead is very much among young aspiring filmmakers. Just everyone looks up to it because it is the movie, like it very much screams of these guys, like, got together and they just went away for a weekend and they just made the movie.
Yeah.
That's like what the first Evil Dead is. So people like look up, people just revere that story behind the first Evil Dead. And like, especially because when you're watching it, you can tell like that this is like the crew, while you're watching, like these are the people. Like there's like apparently stories of like, I don't know how long they all lived in that house together and how like, I don't know, some of those actors, like what they were also doing as part of the actual production and stuff like that. So it's just beloved for that reason. And then the second Evil Dead, now we have some budget and, like a lot of sequels that are well revered, it just takes the original concept of the first Evil Dead and takes it to, from 0 to 10. It just
Yeah.
goes full on with it.
Astronomical.
It gets insane. And, was a huge hit. Everyone loves it. Bruce Campbell is just so known for this movie. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know much else to say because it just sounds like cliche, but when I watch Evil Dead 2, I think, oh, this is like why like movies like exist, is for like movies like this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just exciting to watch a movie like this where it feels obviously, yeah, they definitely had more of a budget here, but it still just has that feeling of like young creative people just
It
making
does. Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And there's no other like outside influence. It's just
Right.
making something that they find like funny and interesting, and
Right.
yeah, and it's just, yeah, so it just feels really authentic and unique. And I think this is cool that this is one of those movies that's so highly regarded and influential on just like filmmakers, because it is just sort of just doing it without trying to get acceptance from,
right, definitely not.
permission
Yeah,
from someone else first.
oh, definitely not. Yeah. And I don't know, I love the, like, I don't know, the along the lines of humor specifically, I love just how aware like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell both seem to be of like not only how Bruce Campbell comes across, but how like dialogue in movies just can come across, and how, and I like, we'll see how this is like with our next film, how, because our next film at a lot of the times is trying to do the same thing except with way less substance and quality. And like this film kind of tries to play along the lines of like dialogue that sounds bad and sounds corny can be used as like funny. Like let's
Mhm.
like if we underwrite dialogue, if we downplay lines, like every line in this can be funny. And like literally like just exposition and the way we move from one crazy scene to the next is just, I mean, it's just nonstop humor, to the point where there is like, I don't know, like you're not taking anything seriously, to the point where this becomes its own thing. Like, I don't know, like to even call this a horror comedy, I almost think is downplaying what this is, because this is its like what people say with lynching, when you watch Twin Peaks, it is its own genre. I feel like
Mhm.
Evil Dead is its own genre of horror for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's probably the most distinct out of all of these movies that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's there's nothing that's doing something like it remotely. I mean, there's like the similar like movie tropes of like being in a cabin in the woods and the undead, but
Right.
um yeah, sort of the route it takes to show one of these stories is just not by the books at all. um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And it does, I love just the end, how he kind of falls into that vortex. That reminded me of like a
Oh
Lynch thing
yeah.
too, where he falls into this vortex and you're suddenly in that well, I forget what era it
It's
is.
like medieval,
Medieval
like,
times, which, so I forgot that's how they set up the sequel. Um, and say what you
yeah.
want on like the sequel's quality compared to this. I just think the execution of him ending up there is just, um, I don't know, the perfect cap off to the weirdest movie ever, and is like, I don't know, somewhat like, I don't know, it's like a rabbit hole of thought where you can really think about that, like happening to like
Yeah.
along the lines of the mythology of the Evil Dead and all you've experienced with it already, and being like, what the fuck, and endlessly think about that in, like I said, like the only thing I can really compare it to is like a Lynch type thing almost. It's like, it's just so weird and strange and crazy and awesome that I'm not even sure what hit me. It's like creativity in a film and horror at a different level, and a certain level of creepy that I can't really comprehend either.
Yeah. It's just really creative and different, and I love the ending too, because I feel like the typical way to go about it is that, of course he's the hero, he can't die. Like he a lot of people die because it is a horror movie, but
Right.
Ash
Yeah.
still saves the day. He's gotten through all of this. It has, like a nice like relaxed ending, but no, it's something you can't even like predict. He goes into this vortex and then he is in medieval times and he's just like, no, while they're like bowing
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just yeah, it's just so surreal, and
It
some things
is. It
just
is.
don't make any sense, but it just fits and it
But
works.
that's like the point. Yeah, that's like the whole
Exactly. Yeah.
point. Yeah.
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 Very thought-provoking film.
Time for our main event.
So, yeah, ThanksKilling.
Thanks,
Yeah,
killing.
I watched this before podcasting, and like I was in I had a similar feel to when I watched Grown Ups before podcasting. I just felt like really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched this last night and was feeling the same. Watched this right after I watched Evil Dead 2, actually. So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if you want to give context at all, because this was the second time
Yeah.
that I've seen it, but the first time that I'd seen it was with you and probably our friend Rick, I think in his
Right.
basement, like
Yeah. Yeah, I remember
12,
watching it with Rick.
13 years ago now.
Yeah, it was with Rick. Now that you mention it, holy shit. Yeah, because I remember Rick being like, ThanksKilling, remember ThanksKilling over
Yeah.
the weekend, or something like that. And I think we might have shown it another time to our friend Zach.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
there's another time in there too.
and
But
I think I also showed it to other people, like with my brother Jake. My brother Jake and I watched it with some friends of ours or something like that.
Mhm.
So I've actually seen this movie like a few times. Like it's
Yeah.
not, I haven't just seen it once. Like, because I remember because when it started, I recognized, I was like, holy shit, I remember like so many lines of this and like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I distinctly remember the opening line, but I didn't remember which spoiler is nice tits, bitch, spoken by
Yeah,
a fake turkey.
right.
And yeah, I didn't realize that was literally the first line of the movie.
Right.
But
And
yeah,
like the first frame is literally a tit,
yeah, I
which just shows what you're getting into like right off the bat.
I actually have a visual aid because I wanted to bring up the posters for ThanksKilling, which I don't know how much you've looked at the posters for this, but here we have
That's
up
the one
here
on the one on the left is the one I know more. The one
this
on the
one.
right I have not seen it. Yeah. Yeah, the one on your right. Yeah, the one on your
Yeah.
right. Yep.
So warning, boobs in the first second. That's
Oh shit.
it's on the
Yeah.
poster. Yeah, that's literally the very first shot you see is a boob that slowly pans out and you
I
see
never noticed that because I've never seen the poster so up close.
prominent.
And
Yeah.
can you move to your left a little bit?
Yeah.
The
Like
ultimate low budget experience, a killer turkey
turkey
com.
comedy
Oh,
horror flick.
I thought it said horror fuck at first. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
wow, this movie really doesn't give a shit.
And then I'm trying to see what it says
It says
down
starring Turkey.
the cult
D
classic now on DVD. Where for the listeners, this is I guess this is definitely more for the YouTube audience, but we're still describing
right,
what is on this poster.
right,
Uh,
right, right.
DVD is spelled DEEVEEDEE for some reason. And then we have this one over
Wow,
here, which
which I've
also
never
says
seen.
gobble gobble motherfucker, just like the other one. It's not they don't like bleep out fucker, and they don't put the all the symbols there like they do in the other one for
Yeah,
some reason.
it's a straight to streaming DVD movie. Even if this got
Yeah.
I don't even know if this got a DVD. Who knows?
And it says, well, yeah, it says cult classic now on DVD, remember?
Oh yeah,
Right there,
yeah. You're right. You're right.
DVD. But this
Yeah, you're
one,
right.
it says featuring Chuck Lamb, aka Dead Body Guy. Uh
It says
and
what is that MTV music?
what does this say? I might have to with music from General Bastard. The guy, so whoever did the music is General Bastard. But Dead
So
Body Guy, I looked that up, and this is apparently the guy who plays the sheriff in this. He's
yeah.
apparently well known, like he's been on talk shows and stuff because he's played dead bodies as an extra in movies and TVs, movies and
Oh.
TV for like decades.
Oh.
Because
Wow.
he's so good at looking like a dead dope,
Dead
like it's
body
some
guy.
dead guy.
That's a
Yeah,
nice touch that they cast him in that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of cool. And like I don't know, probably on their end, like with the budget they had, it probably made sense to cast someone who was probably looking for some actual screen time. It's almost like a
yeah,
Nathan Fielder trick in a way.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And my favorite thing on this poster here is this is kind of small, but oops, other side. You can see at the very bottom it says www.myspace.com/ThanksKilling, which is such
MySpace.com. That's
yeah.
they plug it under there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is a MySpace link on the movie poster, which is just dating it so much.
Right, right.
Yeah. I didn't
Now
even remember
they
that
need to
people would
start
put movies on
a
MySpace.
right. Oh yeah. I was never that in tune with MySpace to know that. Yeah, but who knows? Maybe if we were like in our adult life and maybe if we were doing the Cinebums in 2008, we'd have the Cinebums MySpace page, I'm
True.
sure, or
True.
something
We
like that.
probably would. Yeah.
Yeah, but wow, yeah, I know. I'm happy you brought these posters up. This was definitely a
Had to
good
talk about
start
it.
to it. Very important, and sets the tone well. Um, I just remember seeing that poster. It was one of those like spontaneous, what is this? We're putting it on, type nights. And like it really does like live up to everything like you want it to be. You're like, oh, that looks like the stupidest movie ever, and then like it really just gives you that.
Yeah.
So in a way it's kind of like smart, like the marketing of this film, if you think about it. Like it kind of like makes you want to watch it even though it's trash and like what it's gonna be.
Yeah. They definitely set out to make a comedy horror, like not a serious movie.
Yeah.
And the humor, I guess, which maybe is subjective, uh just it's not funny, and like hardly at all, in like in an intentional way, maybe.
Right.
Like, I don't think this is necessarily satire, but it's trying to be more of like really crass, dirty, uh
And just like cringe,
maybe
I feel a lot of
cringe.
cringe
Yeah,
and like
cringe, broy humor.
like they're one of the first lines of the film after nice tits bitch is like, hey, it's Thanksgiving, not titsgiving.
Yeah, tits giving. Yeah, what? Yeah. And along with that, when we get to like present day too, uh the I can't remember their names, but they're walking out of school, and like the fat friend rips his shirt
Yeah,
open, and he's like, "Oh,
right,
they're like,
right.
put, like, what are you doing, whatever?" And
He's
he's
like,
like,
put that away. No one
"Yeah,
wants to see those nasty titties. And then
yeah,
like it, like yeah, like the girl who they talk about is like a slut. She does it.
yeah,
She goes like, yeah, it's Thanksgiving, not titsgiving. And then the guy comes out. He's like, hey man, no one wants to see those nasty titties. It's
yeah."
and of course like the campus is like dead.
There's
There's
no one
like
there. Yeah,
4 people who just got out of school in the whole college, and
yeah,
they're like, time to go home. And like who goes like, Thanksgiving break.
yeah. Thanksgiving
Oh
break.
yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing. Nobody's ever, celebrating for Thanksgiving break quite like that. Yeah, and also, as we're in the beginning of the movie here, I don't remember if this is after we meet the characters, or I think this is between the opening scene where he says nice tits bitch and chases this pilgrim woman
Mhm.
in the forest, and then before we meet the high school students, there's the opening credits. And this is like, I was taking notes on ThanksKilling, not on any of the other movies, but on this one. And it
Yeah.
reminded me a little bit of, like, I don't know if it was Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man, one of the like
Oh,
Sam
you mean
Raimi
like the
Spider-Mans.
titles? Yeah, the
Yeah,
titles.
but like a low
Right.
budget
Yeah.
iMovie version of that. And it's so long. The credits, the
Right.
opening
Right.
credits and
For
music is
a movie
so
that's like
long.
just over an hour.
Yeah, it's like 10% of the movie is just the opening credits.
And also, I don't know, the soundtrack for me, the score, if you will, like really, I like it's stuck in my brain. Like I remembered it immediately when it dropped. And what I didn't realize before is that the main theme of ThanksKilling is really like a kind of crappy, like early 2010s like hip hop beat in a way. Like there's like hip hop like drums in there, and they have like that
Yeah.
like a very like, you know, carpentery horror like melody going over it, and it has that like I don't know, kind of like it's like a almost like a vocoder, like where it's like no, no, and like it's just I just remember like the music like once it dropped, I was like, oh my god, I remember watching this movie, like so much in
It's
high. It's like
yeah.
bringing back high school, and they also have it at the end where she like blows up the turkey, and like
Hmm.
they replay it again,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
like
It's like
tease a sequel. And I don't know if you know, which I think actually eventually we should do this. There is a sequel.
I found out last night that there's a
There's a
sequel.
ThanksKilling 3. They call it
Yeah.
ThanksKilling 3. They skip over numbers.
And
And
it's like the search for the sequel. It's the search for the second movie, something like that.
oh, is it?
I
I don't know.
tried to read some like plot summary of it, but I didn't know it existed until I watched. So ThanksKilling is on Tubi, so that's where I watched it. And then after that finished, it was like counting down, and it was like in 19, 18, 17, ThanksKilling 3, and I was like, what the fuck, ThanksKilling 3?
Oh, okay.
So
I
that's
don't
how
think
I
I got.
found out.
Was it like a post credits thing?
Yeah, it's like just when you're watching anything streaming and like on Netflix, and it'll say
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
here's
yeah.
suggestion for next thing to watch, whatever, and it's just started going into it. And then so I had to look it up a little bit. But yeah, so the ThanksKilling 3 is foul-mouthed villain Turkey carves the likes of rapping grandma, a mindless puppet, a wig-wearing inventor, a bisexual space worm, and their equally ridiculous friends on his quest to recover the last copy of ThanksKilling 2. What?
I think, and it's an hour and 39 minutes, and that is just way, way too
Oh my
long.
god,
The
yeah.
one thing I'll say about ThanksKilling is that the length is just right, I think. Like,
Yeah.
and I think it manages to fit all the necessary, if you can call them, story beats in that hour and like 10 minutes. Like it
Hmm.
manages to fit all the nonsense it wants, like all the bids, like everything.
Yeah,
And I also
it's
think,
I definitely couldn't take more of it, I think too.
no, definitely
Yeah.
not. And I think this movie for me, like, I don't know, like I'm now, I'm not well known, but I am known to you as a guy who likes bad movies. I can't get enough about bad movies, and I love talking like very thoroughly about bad movies. I find it
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the maybe first movies that I saw that, I don't know, where you would just see dialogue scenes that were just that hurt your brain in like a grown-ups fashion, where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can just sit back and laugh at just this interaction in the car, when they're driving home, and like just think like, wow, all this dialogue is so preposterous. I can't believe they did it and committed to it, and just I like, and like I still find it funny to this day. I still find it funny where he's like, how about we go around, say what we're thankful for, and the girl's like, I'm thankful that we're in good I'm thankful that we're in good health, like
Yeah.
all that.
It's so stupid. Yeah.
It is. It's so dumb, and like the fact that Johnny, the football star guy, is like basically has this love triangle with like the good girl and the slutty girl the whole time, and
Hmm.
is clearly like more into the like good girl, but also he seems kind of down for the other girl too, and the like slutty girl is always like, I'm down to hang sometime, Johnny, like all the time.
Yeah. Just what a weird group of people.
Right,
You
that
have
they
like
chose to put together.
the jock, then the slutty girl, the good girl, and then like the redneck fat
Right.
guy who's
Like
supposed to be like
that
comic
guy, I don't
relief.
even know like what that type of guy is, but he's like, that is definitely like a type, like that guy. You see
Yeah.
him around. I mean, the best comparison I could make it to is like a Chum Lee off of Pawn
Pawns.
Stars,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
that like bummy, big, like bearded, curly haired, white guy that wears those exact kind of clothes, always has a hat. Like, I don't know why. That's just like a guy, like for some reason in our world. And so a lot and at times in movies. And for some reason, yeah, there's one of those guys in this
Yeah.
group. I just can't help but think like he was friends with the producers and directors of this movie and that they put him in there. But yeah, for some reason he's in there.
And then the nerd too, the nerdy
Yeah,
guy
the
who
nerd who like they don't even know, but he hitches a ride back and he's just like, you guys are the cool kids, right? And it's like they're in college, like we're still like doing these very stereotypical, like, you know, stupid, like social, like, I don't know, social group stuff.
yeah, like starting quarterback, and
Right. Yeah.
he's the
Yeah.
nerd, but he's like he also is like enamored with the starting quarterback guy, the jock guy. Like
Right. Like
he wants him to
he
like
wants to,
him.
yeah, exactly.
And then he's
Like,
like even talks like he's talking about the starting quarterback who like got the job ahead of him, and he's like, oh, but
right.
you're better than like
Right.
he just
Right.
knows
Right.
about football because he's just obsessed with this guy somehow. It's just,
Right.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
And he says like in the car, this weekend I'm gonna get laid by someone in this car or something.
Yeah.
Like it's just like so creepy, like to one of the
What?
two girls that's in the car, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, just out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, just the dialogue in general is just so awkward too.
It is. It's like brain numbing dialogue at every turn. The dialogue is just basically because it's like, I don't know. We talk about in Grown Ups that like they're not trying. I feel like this dialogue is like trying to be stupid so much. It's just
Yeah.
trying so much to be stupid that I just that you're just like at every turn you want to like scratch your head and like all the time and you're like yeah,
Yeah.
like it's meant to hurt your brain.
Yeah, it's there's almost parts of it that are like a Tim and Eric sketch in a way where it's just very like absurd and weird, but it doesn't really hit the mark comedy
Yeah,
wise.
right,
Like
right.
the woman so when we meet like, the good girl, her like parents are the sheriff and
Yeah,
who
yeah.
we only see her mom like in the beginning when she shits in the
Right.
coffee
Right, right,
carafe,
right. Yeah, yeah.
and she's like, I want a divorce.
It's
It's like,
literally shit. I did.
it's like, what the like, yeah, that's
Probably
something that
because they don't have like the budget for like to have her in there, or they just like, you know,
yeah,
found it convenient to not have her there the rest of the movie.
it's just like that it's not really like funny. It's just weird. But I think they're going for something like so crazy over the top. Like this is supposed to be super funny that she shit in the which it does make me
Yeah,
laugh,
I mean,
but in
I
like
will
this
say
is
like
so
the
stupid.
tone is at least like consistent throughout. Like they
Yeah.
do like whatever this is they're going for, it is like consistent.
Yeah. And I guess I don't know how closely we're sticking to like the plot chronologically, but a scene I do kind of have I do have an issue with is when the slutty girl is she like leaves them. She's like, thanks for dropping me off, Johnny. And then
Yeah, yeah.
she of course she goes home and she's already
She
like
has a
banging
dude
another
ready.
dude.
Yeah, she has a dude.
And then the turkey comes in, kills the guy
Mhm.
banging her, and then
Mhm.
starts raping her.
Yeah.
like there's literally like a turkey rape scene
Yeah,
in
just
this.
insane. Yeah.
I
It's
couldn't believe it.
disgusting.
I didn't remember that at all from watching that in high school.
Oh,
Uh,
I did. I did. It's disgusting. Yeah.
yeah, what the fuck? And then he
And
like finishes.
he's making the noises during it
Yeah,
too, and like I don't know, but at the same time, like the characters are like so stupid with everything to do with the turkey that like, and the characters are so dumb that like I don't know, I never really feel bad for anybody, even the girl getting raped by the turkey. I don't feel bad really for her at all.
I just hope no one takes this clip out of context. And
yeah, oh yeah, I guess it's true.
The girl getting raped, I don't care about her at all.
Well, just know we're in the middle of this ThanksKilling episode. But like to go along with that, like when the characters like die, like later, some of them, like it, like the turkey's wearing like the dad's face on his face, like, you know, like, come on, like
they're like, oh, okay, Dad, and then he sees the dead body, and then he like the redneck guy like pieces it together. It's just so stupid.
She's like, hi, Daddy, and she's like, you look different. Takes off the hat. Oh, you got a haircut, and it's like you're just staring down at your dad now. Like, what is wrong with you guys? And
they're all idiots. And I also love when their whole point was to get to her dad so they could read his books to try and read on how to kill this.
My dad, he has tons of books. I'm sure he has something on killer turkeys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and then so there's just a montage of them all like reading books. Like there's a long montage of them just piling through books and flipping pages.
Right. What other scenes are there even in here?
Okay, another thing I want to bring up then is too the nerd. So the nerd they didn't really like, or didn't really know. I mean, they didn't really know him at all.
Yeah.
And then when the redneck guy is killed, he's having all these like there's a song. He has a best friend song, a musical number that he does. About his best friend and how they were like embracing each other, and he's remembering all the good times they had, and it's just like I thought they didn't know each other. Now they're best friends. Is this also?
Well, they like kind of knew. They like sort of knew each other. He's like, oh, him. He's cool. He's all right. I have him around sometimes. That's like kind of their acquaintance, you know. Like, you know, he just like kind of seems to follow that guy around and stuff. Yeah, and like at the end, he's like hanging with Johnny and the good girl, like in the house of like her dead dad, and like Johnny's parents were killed, and he's just like, I may have lost parents, but I gained a girlfriend. And then she's like, girlfriend? And he's like, would you like to be my girlfriend? It's just like, oh my goodness gracious. And then eventually like the turkey is in a teepee on the side of the road, like so ridiculous. The turkey's in a teepee. And he's like tossing a salad for some reason.
Yeah, what is that about? Was that supposed to mean something else?
I think it's supposed to be funny that the turkey's eating a salad, and it's like, oh, after a long day, a nice salad. Oh yeah. It's like, isn't he like eating people, like, you know?
Yeah. And then when they're like about to kill him, doesn't he go into his monologue about why he's doing, like, he's getting revenge because he's a Native American, and he's
it's like, we gave you casinos and land or something. And they're like, wasn't that good enough? And he's like, it almost was, or something like that.
Yeah, the movie really, it's a great example of social commentary on Native American genocide and the ramifications of colonialism. This
is when I first
really strikes
found out, for sure. That made me aware. I forget what he says, like Johnny, like after his parents die, he says, no like when his parents die, he's like, no mashed potatoes, no pumpkin pie. And like he has that scene where he tells his dad, he's like, I just want to let you know. And this kind of like connects with our kicking and screaming episode where we're talking about like dads who are like, but this like, I think this movie's like playing on it, like, to try to like make fun of that sort of thing where he's like his dad won't talk to him because he's not the first string college quarterback anymore. And he's like, Dad, I did it. I'm the first string starting quarterback of the Tritons or whatever
The
this
Tritons, yeah.
the Tritons. And he's like, oh my God, son, you did it. Just like your old man. He's like, I love you, Dad.
Yeah, it's such an awkward conversation. And then immediately his dad killed then, like right after that?
Yeah, like both his parents, like
Oh
immediately after that.
Yeah, and then he's like he's like meeting up with his friends again, and he's like, oh man, I can't believe that it killed my dad. I gotta kill this turkey. Like he's not like crying or just like in total despair because his parents were just murdered in front of him.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh man, I gotta do something about this
all
turkey.
the actors are like equally like, I don't know, they all have the same tone of like, well, now I gotta do this. That's like how they all talk like in this movie. I also like the scene with the turkeys like wearing the glasses and he's talking to the guy where the dead body guy, and he's wearing his turkey outfit like because he expects kids to come up to the house like on like around Thanksgiving time so he can like come up in his turkey outfit because that's a thing, right? And they just have this interaction where like he's like sitting next to a turkey while he's in his turkey outfit, and he's like, how you doing, little fella? And he's like, you're like one of those little like midget types, huh? Like not an animal, like he's a small person.
And that's the on Letterboxd, that's like the background image is him sitting in that turkey outfit talking to the turkey, and it just makes the movie look even more ridiculous than it is if you don't know anything about it and just see that.
I
don't know how much you looked into the director and everything too, but
I did and the cinematographer and producer, most notably he is the cinematographer of Unfriended Dark Web, which actually is farther than anyone I would have expected to have gone from this production, for sure. So good on him. He's not only like clearly having fun and making stuff he wants to, just for fun. He's also successful in a way. So good for him. And I definitely would have never thought that because he was the cinematographer of this movie, that he would be qualified to be the cinematographer of Unfriended Dark Web. But there you go.
The only thing I could think of is that isn't that movie all shot on like webcams?
Yes, that is true. Yeah, that's true.
So because I was looking that up and I was like, oh yeah, I saw the first Unfriended movie, not this one, the sequel. And then I just saw a picture of it. I was like, oh wait, yeah, that was all like over Zoom, essentially.
Right.
So I'm curious as to what went into the cinematography of that, what went into the filming of that, like what specifically
he
did
probably
he do,
had a I don't know, it's like what you're doing now with monitoring this Zoom meeting, except
I am the cinematographer of
our
podcast. Yeah. Add this to my IMDb.
Right. And like I was looking over the production crew because I just wanted to, like, a lot of the times with movies like these, you'll look it over and you're like, wow, I can't believe how many of this they had, how many of this. But I looked over this and I was not really surprised by anything like the size of the crew or anything like that. Like there weren't like any, obviously any like, Scott Rudin did not produce this movie. And like it's definitely like the two guys shout out to Jordan Downey and Kevin Stewart.
Kevin Stewart, yeah.
Yeah, this is their baby. And the writing, it's not like I saw it. I was surprised at first because I'm like, oh, 5 people wrote this, but it's just because there's additional dialogue, meaning probably on set someone shouted something stupid out like "nice tits, bitch," or like "it's tits given" or something like that. And
oh, good one. Like, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Let's roll on that. Like
yeah. Yeah, do that again. Start rolling. Yeah. That's good.
Another thing I noticed about this, I try not to get, I'm not very like a technical guy when it comes to film and my film career, and that's one of the reasons why I don't work steady in the film industry too, is because I'm not a technical guy. But I don't talk about technical stuff too much on this podcast, but I don't know if you noticed this, but the sound quality at times,
yes,
it sounds like not only like these actors aren't like laved up or like, I don't know, it almost sounds like there's not even like a boom mic over them. It sounds like they're just going straight to camera and stuff. Like sometimes like because you can tell specifically because the turkey, of course, has his lines dubbed and the actors don't. So you can hear significant differences in the audio
totally,
of it. And sometimes I'm just like watching them, like, because there's the scenes where they're they're talking to the turkey and be like, "Why are you doing this?" and like stuff like that. And you can barely like hear them. Like their audio is like terrible. It just sounds like it's camcorder footage practically,
Yeah. No, it's distracting. I thought about that too. And especially in the scene when he's talking to the guy in the turkey costume for a while, that you could really tell it's like this is recorded,
right?
Like this was recorded in a room somewhere. Like it's not even like a professionally sounding voiceover either. Like you can just tell this was recorded not in this room. So it just it makes the dialogue even more awkward and like distracting when it doesn't, the sound's not really matching up. Yeah. And I also thought that way with the music sometimes too. In the beginning, there's when you first show them at college and they're like Thanksgiving break, they start playing this like generic 2000s pop rock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like so like typical 2006 or whatever. And and then like once their dialogue starts and they're like talking to each other, the music is like under them, but it's in a like a weird level where it almost sounds like it's like they're supposed to be listening to it now, like as they're talking, like they're listening to it in the background, but they don't have anything that would play music with them while they're just like sort of walking, and it just sounds weird. And then they get to the car and like the car is not on, but he's like, so maybe it's coming from the car. It's just like weird how like the sound, they keep the music going, but it's just like at this weird level that just sounds off. And then they bring it back up like when they're starting to drive, when they
walk off. Yeah. Let's just go home, have a great Thanksgiving with our families. I think this movie also, like, I don't know, it's like so obvious how there's nobody ever there except for the actors. And except for who's supposed to be on camera. There's never any like attempt, like obviously like budgets are low, whatnot, but I don't know, like it goes like a long way to, at least when you're filming in a location like a road, to see some other cars on occasion. And they never film. All the locations are so odd. Like they're so odd and they're meant to be where there's no people. But like, I don't know, there's never like anything going on. There's never anything. It's just like what's happening like with the characters. And like even at the end, like they're like the most random location is just like they put the TP on the side of the road in this like suburban neighborhood, like clearly. And then like they party in the woods, and like they party in the woods and set up tents, and just like and then like when they're at their homes, like it's just, I don't know, I just find it so strange how like little people, like they never try to have an extra or in any single moment or anything. It's just like it's so strange. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no people living in this world besides them. I don't think they ever go to any like public places really.
Like
Well, they're in
there's an
public places,
exterior
but
at the college, and
yeah,
that's literally it. Every other place is like clearly like they filmed it at like a house that they had access to, and
yeah,
there's always like one person in the house. Always there's like, that's it, like two people max in the house,
yeah,
and then at the end they cast like they have that, like everyone's sitting down for Thanksgiving, and it's like these people are clearly like, I don't know, they just feel like random as hell, and like they just got them to be in this scene because they were able to get them.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say about ThanksKilling? I guess
Yeah,
we've
not much.
dedicated a whole segment to it now. Yeah,
Yeah, not really that much, but I'm happy we've covered it. I'm sure there's plenty of people who've seen it that would be about this. So
yeah.
they're
I think
like,
it's
I also don't feel bad for the girl who got raped by the turkey
yeah.
either. Fuck her.
Finally, someone says it. Yeah, says what we're all thinking.
All right,
Yeah, I mean,
well,
if you haven't seen it and you're one of those people who's into, bad movies, and especially, bad horror movies, like this is
this is
definitely one to
quintessential.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think, yeah, it would be fun to talk about ThanksKilling 3 sometime.
most definitely, most
And I almost
definitely.
think out of all the movies we've talked about, this is maybe the one where I feel like there's a chance we could even reach out to
Oh,
one of
the
those
creators,
guys. And
and talk about it.
it's almost like attainable that you almost
Right.
think they would want to talk about it on a podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should slide into
Yeah, maybe we'll shoot our shot.
Jordan Downey's DMs as our on the podcast, and maybe get him as a guest. I don't know. Maybe that's a move.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah. Anyways, I guess wrapping up ThanksKilling, we just said like you should watch it if you haven't seen it.
yeah,
I mean, it's mainly meant to be watched like in high school, I would like to think. And like,
yeah,
if you haven't seen it yet, you're probably, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those where if you start it when you're an adult, you'll probably, if you're not drunk watching it with some friends, that sort of thing, I would assume after scene one, you're probably like, you may stick around.
yeah,
I think like it'd just be hard to see people finishing it, like
yeah,
I just feel like a sensible person, and this is like, to say, this is kind of like to not to down the film, it's more to down me and my like tolerance, and maybe just what I'm into. But like I see something like this, I'm like, I have to see this through. A lot of people will think, oh, I'm not gonna waste. We can't finish this. I'm not gonna waste my time watching this.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the movie does start with like 3 tit jokes,
yeah,
and some bad acting, and like, shows you what it is. It really shows its colors right off the bat.
yeah, definitely.
And if that doesn't turn you off, then maybe the rape scene later will.
Yeah, yeah, that for sure will do it. Yeah. I think had we not been doing this for the podcast, this would have been a lot harder to watch just on my own. Definitely wouldn't have happened. but but I did remember having
your wife did not tune in for
no,
ThanksKilling.
no, she did not. This was a solo effort. Yeah. But I do have fond memories of watching this maybe twice now that I'm thinking about it.
in
We were in high school.
my
Yeah.
parents' house. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was a good time. I do remember we would laugh. We laughed very hard, and
Yep.
it got us through our junior year, whatever it was, and got to
This might have
talk
been,
about it at
I
school.
feel like we watched some other bad movies around this time too. And this was like, yeah, my first foray into like the bad, low
Yeah,
budget
yeah.
independent movie world,
And I think it was
like
like
Troll
when
2.
Netflix was like a smaller thing and
Right.
wasn't
Yeah.
known for having quality on it as much, and you could
Yes.
find something like ThanksKilling on it. It's kind of like what Tubi is now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Back in those days, you would get, there was like a couple of like popular shows that aren't like on anymore. And then yeah, a lot of random ass movies like this. Yeah. That's wow. What a time that was.
Right. But I guess that's just wrapping up our horror comedy episode. And I believe we were able to cover, I don't know, a bunch of different bases with this. And I think we could have covered more, obviously, because there's a lot. Like we said, that
Yeah.
there's Friday the 13th part 3 and stuff like that. But I think we did we did it. We did the genre justice, and being that we did just come off a summer of doing comedies, it wasn't much that tough a transition for us to do horror comedies to start October off, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. This was a good transition. Glad we could do it. It's definitely something we'll talk about a lot more in the future too. So
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, keep an eye out for Jake's episode with the top 5 horror gems. Like I said, these guys have a movie collection that, you know, like when you see it, you're like, how are you not in debt like Michael Scott with his condo with a movie collection like this? So be ready. These guys are experts. They know what they're talking about. I'm sure that'll be a great one. And then we'll be back week 3 of October doing Korean horror. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a great transition from gobble gobble motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. And so I hope everyone has a good start to their horror month and is, checking their closets before they go to bed and all that fun stuff. And
Yeah, happy October.